So welcome to the next video where we're going to take another look at Unity.Custom, and this time we're going to be looking at the state machine section of Unity.Custom, and we're going to be looking at the FSM Manager class, the FSM State class, and the FSM Transition class. Now these are responsible for finite state machines. The Manager class is going to be responsible for maintaining the states, changing the states, checking transitions, etc. And then we've got the FSM State and FSM Transition class, which are both abstract classes which we use to create the states and the transitions within our finite state machine. So first off, let's have a look at a state machine and see what we want to be making today. So here we've got a basic 3-state machine, starting on an idle state with an attack state and a die state. We're going to be using this on our skeleton. So if the skeleton can see us, he'll go into an attack state. If he can't see us, he'll go back into an idle state. Any time when he dies, he'll go into his die state and remain there. So we're going to need 3 states: an idle state, an attack state, and a die state. And we're going to need 3 transitions: a can see, a can't see, and a dead transition. So let's have a look, see how we're going to produce that. So first off, we're going to need to take our skeleton and add a script to him so we can start adding a state to him. So we'll add another script and we'll call that demo FSM. We'll let that compile. And we will add that to the skeleton. Okay. We'll need access to Unity.Custom state machines, and we're also going to need access to Unity.Custom general, because we are going to be using the ballistics bullet manager class that we used in the previous demo. So as we can see, our player is using the bullet manager to fire a bullet. Therefore our skeleton is going to need to be a shootable component so that we can hit the skeleton and so it can die. So we'll implement that. If you're not sure about how this is done, just look back at the other video and it will all be explained. So if we look at our state machine, we're going to need to know 2 things. We're going to need to know if the skeleton's dead, and we're going to need to know whether we can see the player. So first off, we'll handle whether he's dead or not. We'll just create a basic public boolean and we'll call it isDead. We'll go into our start and go isDead equals false. So for the moment, so we can hit him easily, we'll just say isDead equals true. If we hit him, he's just going to die. We also need to know whether we can see, whether he can see us. So we're going to create boolean can see player, and we're going to utilize another method within the bullet manager class which allows us to check whether a game object can see another object, whether it's in its field of view. So we'll just use that. So the eyes is going to be the skeleton, so we just need to transform of the skeleton. the game object to look at is going to be the player. Obviously, we can't use the camera, so we're going to use the player, and we've created a reference to the player's game object. That is just a static reference to the game object, which makes it easier. Horizontal field of view, I'll say 40, vertical 20, and a distance of 50 meters. That's now going to return true if the skeleton can see us. So we shall save that. Now we need our states. First off, we're going to need to create a state manager. So private finite state manager. In our start, we'll create another, we'll initiate that equals new finite state manager. And in our update, we're going to need to update it. So manager update. So now we have a finite state machine up and running, but at the moment we've got no states and no transitions in it. So we're going to need to create transitions and states. Now the states and the transitions are all classes, so we need to create other classes and then create instances of those classes. Thus, make sure I've got that saved. So we'll start with the idle class, idle state. I'll create another class. We'll call that state idle. She's not done it, so yep, there we've got it. And these are not going to be mono behavior, so we can get rid of all of those. We're using Unity.Custom Finite State Machines, and we need to change that to a Finite State Machine. So Finite State Machine state. We need to create a constructor for it, public state idle, and we need to overwrite the base constructor because there's no zero base constructor. And we can see we've got a string for an ID, and we have an object parent which references back to the demo FSM object. So we'll create string ID and object parent, and we'll pass them to the base constructor. We are then going to need access to our demo FSM class by using the parent. So we will need a reference to that. So we'll go demo FSM parent, and in our constructor we will say parent equals part. Now if we have a look at the state class, we go override, we'll see we have an onEnter, an onExit, a resume, a suspend, and an onUpdate. These are all events which are going to be called during the lifetime of this state. The onEnter is going to be called at the start of the state. The onExit is going to be called when the state ends. The onSuspend is going to be called if we suspend the state, onResume when we resume the state, and the onUpdate is going to be called every update routine. So we're only going to need the onEnter for this example at the minute. So we'll go to onEnter, and we want to go to parent, which is going to give us access to our demo class, and set our animation, crossfade, idle. Is it idle? I'm not sure what it is. Check that. Idle 01. Idle 01. Why is that wrong? Ah, we've not cast that. And we'll do the same on our resume as well, because we're going to need that later. So we'll copy that. So all we are doing now is when we enter the state, we're starting the idle animation, and when we resume the state, we're starting the idle animation. That's all we're doing. So to save time, we have the others already in here. So we'll take our attack state and our die state, and we'll copy them straight in there. We'll now look at our transitions. We'll start with transition dead. So we'll create a new transition dead. And again, we don't need any of that. We need to go into our using Unity.Custom Finite State Machines, and this time a Finite State Machine transition. We implement the is valid. Again, we need a constructor for it, so transition dead. We'll check the base constructor, and that needs a state and again a reference to the parent object. So we'll say Finite State Machine state, we'll call it state and object parent, and just pass them to it. State and parent. Again, we need reference to our parent object, so we will say private demo FSM parent, and we'll cast a copy of that so we can get reference to it. Parent equals demo FSM part. The is valid method is going to be responsible for determining whether this transition is valid or not. So the transition dead will be valid if the character is dead. And we've already created our boolean to say whether he's dead or not, so all we need to do is return that. So we can say return parent gives us access to the demo FSM is dead. So if that's true, that will return true. And that's our transition done. So we'll save time and add the other ones. That's dead, so we've got can't see and can see. If we just have a quick look at these others, pretty much the same. What it's doing is returning the can see player and returning the not can see player. Right, so now we can start setting up our state machine. So we have a blank manager with no states in it. So if we manager add state, new, and we have state idle, and we need to pass an ID to it, so we'll call that idle It's just a string to reference it, and we need to give it a reference to this class. So that's created an idle state. Manager add new state attack. Call that attack and give that a reference to there as well. And the last one, add state, new state die. We'll call that die and give that a reference to this. So if we now manager start machine and give it a reference, manager get state by ID, and pass it the idle state. That is now going to start it with just the idle running, because we've got no transitions, so it's going to start on the idle state. Or it should do. Yep. He's now in his idle state. He's not going to do anything else. He's not going to go out. Not going to change because we've got no transitions. So as we can see, we've got a string at the top of the screen, so we can see what state he's in. So we'll add that to his update. We'll go into his update, and I think I called that state text. The text equals, we'll call that current state plus manager current state, and we'll get the ID of the current state, which is just that's one of these strings. Yep, don't do that. We run it now. That compile. We can now see he's in the idle state. Right, so we now need to give access to the transitions to allow him to change between one state and another. So if we go back to our demo FSM and we say manager get state by ID, and we'll get the idle state. As we can see, the idle state is going to have a transition C to attack and a transition is dead to die. So idle state, add transition, we say new transition can see, and we have to put reference to the state which we'll need to go to if it can see it. So that we would then go manager get state by ID, and that one is going to want to go to the attack. If you can see, he's going to want to go to the attack state. So our attack state, the ID is attack, so attack, pass that reference there, and that gives us one transition. For now, manager get state by ID, idle, add another transition, a new transition dead this time, manager get state by ID, and that's going to go to the die state. So now we have two transitions set on the idle state. If we save that, and we can check it. Run that. You can now see he's not going to come out of that state now because he's already he's in the attack state now. He's not going to come out of it because you can see it. So we'll add the other states. So in the attack state, we've got manager, get state by ID, attack, add transition, and the attack transitions are can't see goes back to idle, and is dead goes to die. So new transition can't see, get the state that we want to go to, manager, get state by ID, if you can't see goes back to idle, and manager, get state by ID, attack, add transition, new transition, dead, and that one wants to go to manager, get state by ID, put that reference in there, and that wants to go to die. So there we have the two attack to idle and attack to die, which is attack to idle and attack to die. And there's none on, we have no transitions going away from die, so once it's in die it just stays there. So that, I think, is all of them. Yep, we've got 3 states, and 1, 2, 3, 4, is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4 transitions, yep. So let's have a look at that. So we've got it. So as we can see in the top corner, he's in attack state because he can see us. Now he's in his idle state because he can't. Back in attack because he can see us. Idle state because he can't. Shoot at him, he dies. Once he's dead, he stays dead. So if we go into again, if he's in his attack state and we shoot him, he goes to die. If he's in his idle state and we shoot him, he goes to die. So there we have our basic state machine up and running. Now this is all fine, but there's one problem with this state machine. If we want to handle reactions, we have to add extra states to it. So we'll have a look. At the minute, we have an idle attack and die. If we want to run an animation when he gets shot, so we'll quickly add health to him. So if we say private float health equals 30, and then when we shoot him, instead of him just dying straight away, we say health minus equal damage, and then if health is less or equal to 0, die. So now if we add that in there, we'll be able to see it as well. So plus, so we'll add the health in there so we can see it. Plus health. We run that now. Compile that. we can now see he has a health of 30. If we shoot him, health of 20. Shoot him, health of 10. Shoot him, health of 0, and he dies, which all works fine. But we will probably need him to react to the fact he's been shot. Now, the most obvious way of doing this, if we go back into our state machines, we have 3 states. If we add another state, then it solves the problem. The only problem is this creates another problem. If we have 2 states that he can react from, we then need 4 more transitions. If we had 10 states, 20 transitions, 20 states, 40 transitions. Soon it's going to get out of control. Therefore, we're best off taking reactions out of our state machine and adding them separately. So, what was I doing? So, instead of doing that, we can say manager suspend. So we'll suspend the state machine, and we'll say animation crossfade and it is, the name of it will be hit A. Hit A. So when we're hit, we suspend the finite state machine and we start the animation hit A. And within our update, we'll check the manager, check to see if it's running. Because when it hits, it's going to suspend it, which will stop it from running. So if it's not running, i.e. we know it's suspended, we can then check to see if animation is playing. And if the animation isn't playing, we take the manager and we resume. We start it running again. The idle. Yep. So, yep. Hopefully that should work. So we're in our attack. We hit, and he stays in his attack. We're in idle. He reacts, and he stays in idle and goes straight back to idle. And he's in idle, and he dies. So there we are. There's a basic look at how we use finite state machines and state management in Unity.Custom. Thank you for watching.